Aloha mai and welcome to Aloha Authentic. I'm your host, Kamakapili. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the traditional Hawaiian art form known as kuku kapa. And welcome to Aloha Authentic. I'm your host, Kamakapili. In this episode, we're here with the also conversational, and I just enjoy spending time with you, Aunty Dalani Tanahy, who is a Kapa practitioner, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. Now, before we get into it, of course, we have our traditions here in Aloha Authentic. I brought our bowl of poi. Again, the story is Tutu always used to say, when the bowl of poi is open on the dinner table, no negativity is spoken, only words and stories of positivity and creation. And again, that's exactly what we'll be getting on this show. So get your bowl of poi and we'll sit down and have a good conversation together. So thank you very much, Aunty.
Thank you.
We're here at your beautiful farm here in Makaha, so it's beautiful. I'm from the east side, so it's always a different experience coming out on this side. We have a beautiful lei that wanted to make sure we gave you for spending the time. And we felt green, because of course everything we're talking about is green. So kapa, we hear about this, we see a lot of it we see a lot of kapa artwork around different places, but knowing that it's a traditional practice and that it's from ancient times and we still have practitioners such as yourself perpetuating it. Tell us a little bit about the history of kapa making.
Wow, do you have like 20 minutes for this?
I do.
Okay.
I don't know if everybody else does, but I do.
Well, you know, kapa is actually we're making bark cloth into things that were used like textiles or fabrics. It's a global art. So people on all the continents use this, and if you weren't loom weaving or you weren't wearing animal skins, then you were probably wearing some kind of bark cloth or some kind of fibers. And in Hawaii and in Polynesia, those trees originated in China and in Taiwan, as did the origination of how it was processed and made. So, you know, according to latest DNA, then they determined that those plants, those people, and those methods of making it came from that area and traveled out and then just kept traveling and kept migrating and kept moving. And everywhere that people went in the Pacific, they would take those plants, plant them, they would take those tools, maybe modify them here or there, but basically the steps of making kapa are the same wherever you go.
And you see some kapa, for those who may not be familiar with what we're talking about. So this is done across the world in their own cultures and their own means. What is so unique about Hawaiian kapa compared to others?
Hawaiians kind of developed some other interesting steps in what they were doing, like fermenting, like extreme fermenting of the bark, which made it almost more of a paper. So if you've ever seen how paper is made, where they have a slurry and they pull it out on a screen, Hawaiians would also ferment the fibers until it became something of a slurry, and then they would beat that into something like a sheet of paper. So for the most part, bark cloth is considered a laminated plant fiber, where the mucilage and the fluids and things in the plants are what kind of helps glue it together when they beat it. So pieces are laminated together. But in one of the steps that Hawaiians did, it was macerated, torn apart, and then beat back together. It's kind of difficult when you do it, because you can't really tell that it's good until it's dry. When it's wet, it moves, you pound it,
Even
looks
the
okay.
color-wise too,
Even
right?
the colors, yeah. But they had when people are able to do this kind of things, it kind of indicates something of peace and a prosperity sort of situation in the culture, that you have the kind of time to devote to that kind of work.
So let's talk about time.
Yes.
Because this is
Lots of
something,
time, so much
you
time.
just sit down in one spot and you're just pounding for hours and hours.
Well, and that's
hours.
only one part, because, as we'll see later, you've got to grow the trees first. And what happened in Hawaii, when people stopped making kapa, then the trees kind of stopped growing. And people weren't cultivating it, even though it was never domesticated, it was cultivated. People did raise them, take care of them, and grow them to make really good kapa. And so when they stopped doing it, and then of course the land all ended up being used for other things, there just wasn't trees. So in Hawaii, when people started trying to relearn kapa making, they had a really difficult time finding trees again. So that was really interesting.
Are you part of that group that kind of helped to revive this from being lost at one
the
point?
revival's been an ongoing process. So I started doing this in about 1995. So I'm kind of the second wave of the people. But, people like Moana Isley, who, sadly we've lost, Marie McDonald, and Dennis Kanaikiave and Wesley Sen. These were people, and Pua Van Dorp, who we also lost recently. These were people who saw this kind of during that Hawaiian Renaissance. And Herb Kane, interestingly, was, he also spearheaded the whole thing with Hokulea. He also was one who encouraged Pua Van Dorp to learn about kapa making when she had to go to Fiji with her husband.
So all these men and female. So it wasn't just an art that was for women?
The pounding, the processing of it was the women's job.
Okay.
Part of that because, as you said, we're sitting in one place, and that's the perfect place to be when you have all these children to watch. The men, however, were not exempt because they took care of the trees. The men, the sons, the uncles, they would all take care of those trees. There were men who were the craftsmen who created the tools. Men may have been sent up into the forest to go find the dyes. But men had so many jobs of their own, including those 2 emus they had to cook every day to make the men and women's food, because that was all separate.
So we do a lot of things.
Did a lot. The canoes, the hale, all the tools, all the ki'i, maintain the temples. The men had so many things to do. We actually had it easy.
Well, thank you very much, Auntie. Coming up next, stay tuned, because we're going to be going through the process of what it takes to make a final piece of kapa just like this, from the plant to the final product. So stay tuned. Coming up right here on Aloha Authentic. Welcome back to Aloha Authentic. Again, we're talking with Aunty Dalani and everything kapa. And this time we're here in front of her very healthy vauke patch, the plant that we get kapa from. So tell us a little bit about how long does it take for when you first plant this to the stage when it's ready to be harvested to make kapa?
Well, we take the plants as babies. So as the trees grow, they send a lot of little runners out and make babies and everything. So we take those, and when we want to start a new patch, we'll move them there. And hopefully do that in the winter months, especially for makaha, because the rain will help get them settled in. But from that point, for us, it takes, in a year, you can harvest a tree and start pounding kapa out of it. So it's pretty quick growing.
And vauke, just vauke, or there's any other types
There's
of plants?
other trees you can use. Vauke was the favorite one, and it was the one that the Polynesian, during the migrations that they took with them. But you can use breadfruit, you can use banyan, types of fig. Mamaki was one that they used a lot in Hawaii. So there's a few plants.
Too.
Great tea, yeah.
Now, once you harvest it, so what is the next thing that you would do?
So the next thing we would do is to scrape off this outer bark, and then we'd make a cut and pull the inner bark off.
Okay.
So there's a couple of layers and a couple of steps. In different places in the Pacific, they had a little bit different steps. We did one that we developed that was kind of easier for students to learn. So there's a lot of different ways. Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, everybody has a little bit different ways that they do it.
And now this is bringing in some of the traditional tools that was used.
Right,
What do
right.
you use to scrape or to cut?
Potato peelers would have worked good. We tried those, not so good. We went back to the opihi shell, and that's the best thing for the scraping. Even though we have metal tools, we can use knives. There is something so fun about using a shark tooth knife tool as our scraper. So we scrape with a shell, and then we use the niho oki, or the shark tooth knife, and make a cut up the length, and then we're going to pull the inner bark off.
What is, when you're teaching that and you're having, especially kids, using these things that they probably never thought that they would be used like this,
Yeah.
what is the reaction?
Oh,
to them?
they get a real kick out of it, but the important thing is to teach them to be respectful of these tools and where they came from. It's not like I ran out to Home Depot and bought all this stuff. I got to catch those sharks and wrestle those stones. That's what we tell the kids anyway. But, we get the teeth, we get these shells, and it's a whole, kapa is a lot of resources, and you have to manage them, find them, or grow them yourself. But that's an important part always to remember about kapa making, is all the resources you need.
So from this part then becomes the pounding phase.
Right.
So let's go over and see what it takes to
Alrighty
pound
then.
and
Let's do it.
let's make some kapa.
Let's do it.
Oh, look, Auntie, you have everything set up for us already.
Absolutely.
Anyways.
Get to work, man.
We don't fool around. All right.
So we have all of our, traditional tools, and when we teach, this is what we like to show people, that how when you lived on an island, this is the kind of things you had to use. So we're using opihi shells. These are really pretty ones.
I was gonna say they're too pretty for me to even want to use it.
I know.
It's so interesting that opihi shells are actually, you never think of it being this strong, that you can scrape this and not break off.
Yeah, and they would have used this for any kind of scraping application, for scraping taro and scales off of fish and all kinds of things like that. So after that next luau, I'll just go walk around, pick up all the good shells and hang on to them. I might need them for something.
Like we were mentioning earlier, where when you think of kapa or anything really, but especially this practice, this includes going into the ocean, harvesting this, catching that shark, wrestling with the shark, getting the teeth and all that kind of fun stuff. So this really teaches, for me, the biggest thing I think we learn from this is patience. And you're gonna have to be a little bit patient with me because you're so much faster than me trying to scrape this off.
That was only my 50,000th one, so it's okay.
Mine's
but yeah, no, Kapa is a big lesson in resource management, and the things you don't have, you have to grow them, and if there's things you gather, you have to be able to gather sustainably and do that all well. So
I know it's not as pretty as yours.
It's not, but we'll go.
I have more character.
Okay, so right. So all we're gonna do is cut through the skin, so you don't have to put a lot of pressure, just enough to get through the skin.
And this is the niho oki.
And this is the niho oki, or niho mano. Yeah.
Okay, so niho is teeth. Oki is to cut.
To cut.
Okay.
But it is the teeth of the mano. So hopefully you got a couple little fingernails from playing ukulele that you can get under that skin and start to peel it off. And we don't want to peel it like a banana. We want to kind of unwrap it actually. And if the trees have been getting watered consistently and well, then this is an easy part.
Okay.
When I teach, it's deceptively simple because I grow things that students will have an easy time with, because that may be a person's only exposure to kapa making. So I want to make it easy for people, but in real life, it can be horrible. Yeah. It can be terrible.
So this, what we're peeling is the inner bark, and what we scraped off is the outer bark.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So from this point, then that's when we just go straight into pounding.
Straight into pounding, yeah.
And then the real fun begins.
The real fun. So for us, this pounding, we're still not making kapa. Ooh. We are going to be just processing, and when we're going to pound this to get it ready to soak in water to ferment it for the next beating. So we're still not making kapa. Okay. Technically, we are just processing boke.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we pound that, we're going to start from the very top and open that up. And as you can see, you don't have to hit it hard. It's not like at the Ulalena show where they're doing this and banging on it, and people kind of think that. And
so this is actually has a lot of weight, so you're allowing gravity to bring
gravity
it down.
Do the work. You try to get this sort of ergodynamic thing. If you're going to be sitting like this all day long, you want to be able to be comfortable doing it.
So one thing I've noticed with this, which is kind of like tattoo, the sound really creates an ambiance. For you, is that something that sitting here for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 hours, is the sound something that contributes to you being able to do it for that long?
Well, it was something important to them that the sound was pleasant. And when you read some of the stories about, these pleasing sounds of the beating and the wood, because sometimes it's not, and certain sounds can be very hard on your ears. So yeah, you want it to be kind of nice.
So the next step from this would be the actual decorating, and that has a big portion to play, I guess, in terms of storytelling and of course decoration. So coming up next, we're going to be speaking with Kumuhula Chinky Mohoy and his award-winning halau Kawaii Li'ula, as they learned under you for a little bit to come up with their own kapa malo and their performance where they wear this. Again, that's coming up right here on Aloha Authentic, right after the break. Welcome back to Aloha Authentic. We picked up our location and we moved here to Kapapalo'i o Kanewai in the university area. Beautiful location, and it's a perfect place to introduce Kumu Chinky Mohoy, Kumuhula Chinky Mohoy. Thank you very much, Kumu, for taking the time. Now, I thought this was a perfect partnership between the two of you because, as we mentioned before, Kumu Chinky and Kawaii Li'ula was learning under you in terms of making their malo for their Merry Monarch experience. So, Aunty Dalani, we'll start with you. How was that opportunity to be able to teach Kumu Chinky Mohoy and the men of Kawaii Li'ula from the beginning stage to being able to actually see it put into practice on the Merry Monarch stage?
Well, it's always awesome to be able to share, and especially with other cultural practitioners who are going to use the kapa for traditional use. And hula is something that people are real familiar with, so that was really awesome. when they all came out, Kumu put himself in the back and let his men do the talking, and they said, we want to learn to pound kapa and we want you to teach us. And I said, that's so awesome. And I said, did you bring trees? And they said, no. And I said, are you going to use my trees? And they were like, is that okay? I said, this time it is. But, I give everybody a hard time like that because people have to, what we really want is for people to grow trees. For people who would use the kapa to grow trees, learn how, make the tools, and then the 7 of us who do this all the time don't have to do it all the time. Then it gets back into the culture. And it has, over all these years that the Kapa's been back. Both of us went down to Bishop Museum and took a look at especially the pre-contact types of malos because they're different. They're not beaten with the watermark and they have different kind of designs and things. So we all researched that. But they did all the pounding, beating themselves. I showed them, they practiced a few times, and then they went and cut their big good trees, and it was all up to them.
And Kumu, your presentation was amazing by itself, but then just to see this traditional attire added to that made it something just special.
Well, it's just awesome to see how everything panned out and how everything turned out from day one when the boys say, we want to make kapa malos this year. And of course, my first thought was Dalani, but I didn't say anything, and I wanted them to do the research, and she was the one that they went to, which was, I'm happy.
How does that make you feel when you see a final product like that put into action on stage, knowing that you are the source to that?
Not even I'm not the source. I'm just a messenger. I have trees, I have knowledge, I share it because that's what it is. But I hope we're able to do more things like that. We do now. People need kapa for wedding things or, even to wrap ashes and all these traditional use kind of things, cover the apu, things like that. That really makes me happy. It's nice we make things to hang on the wall, put in frames, but it's really, really special when they're on people's bodies and whatever.
It's so cool that we have 2 different kumus on here talking story and sharing with one another. Now, this performance that you guys share, tell us real fast what this hula is all about.
Well, our chant is entitled Maui Nui Akama. And instead of just talking about Kamalala Valu, we traced it back all the way back to Kakalaneo, which is like 7, 8 chiefs back. So it's just ironic that each of our dancer represented each of the ali'i. So everyone had to go out and go research their own ali'i and bring that back to the table, and it's just amazing how everything turned out the way that it did.
And it came out amazing. So I can't wait to watch it again, let alone just watch it here. And that's exactly what you guys are going to be seeing here on Aloha Authentic. Again, Kumuhula, Chinky Muhoi, and Kawai Lu'ula presenting their dance here for you, right here on Aloha Authentic.
Ho'oma, kau kau.
Hey, Maui Nui Akama. O ka hala neo ke ali'i o ke ka.
Ku'o Kakalaneo ma Maui.
Hawaiian hepo ke kikarea.
He peki na mea ulu mai o a o.
Ki papu I o ka ulu na o.
Hama e ma e hola na I hina lapu
Ai o ka hala neo e hoi ho mai. Olu I o ka wau ko o hele. Hala.
Pale o moku na ho Maui ma mua o.
Oi ai kona noho I kou I ka mo.
Ha o he pu'u a o he ke'i I ka mole.
Wala ne ke kaha mai ono I o.
Ku ono kano hona ho Maui.
E wā kama ole ko ka wau ka o hele. Kama na no na hono o pilan.
Ku kila ka ipi I a ka la.
Ua ka ino e o mau I ka pono.
Hua e na vailele o pa'ihi a wailua.
O wai ka aina makahi o hana.
Ho ma'ulu I wai a ama. He awa o pau.
Hiri o Maui me Hawaii o hau. Kohoa I o lono a pilan. Hiri!
Inu o lono I ka vai ava.
Iwi hana oia I kona kaikai.
Ho wa hewa ho lono ia kiha.
Kui mana wan, kalani o lono.
Pakele o kiha pi I lani I ka make.
O pāia a kau I ka lele kau. Nā kiha pilan I miha. Hanale,
Ha'alele o kiha ia hana I ka vai.
ku ke au hunu. O hui a lilo.
Ka
kama aina o umi ka huli au ana.
Mahuli ki o hākau me lono a pila.
Kai mai o ki haya hanai hanai.
Pio wale o lono, ma pupu kaui. O lono e ka makahi, kū kila ki.
Tu kila kila o Maui nui a kama.
Kia loani I nona mā ka ui.
Kukia I ke ku ono ke awa.
E kūlana o ka malala wala.
Kia o kloni kamaki.
I kipa mai o lono I ka makahi. O ka malala wala kale. Kū, tama.
O kama alere ya hana.
E ho o ka hiki kaua hope no.
Hoi alana kila ole o kama I ke kaua.
E ona maulua, kai noa o kama.
He a kapuana he lohe ia.
Hano hano maui, nui a kama.
Ai.
Hei noa noa maui nui a kama.
Welcome back to Aloha Authentic. Mahalo nui loa for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I know I learned a lot because of you. Thank you very much, Aunty Dalani.
Thank you.
And because of that, I have a
Ooh.
little makana. I think the best makana is that I didn't eat any myself. And I did not break any of
Good
those.
job.
So Chinese pretzel, if my tutu was here, she would take it away from you. But real fast, you do a lot of services and products. Where can people find you to talk more about you if they want something?
Right, well I do commission work for people, any kind of kapa people need, we make that. We also teach classes, and you can check the website for the Honolulu Academy. But you can also visit me at my website, kapahawaii.com, or follow me around on Facebook or Instagram at Kapa Hawaii LLC. I have a lot of Kapa stalkers over there. So
Right on.
it's
Become
awesome.
a Kapa stalker yourself.
Become
And
a Kapa stalker.
one way to start that is for our local artisan highlight today. We have company Namaka Kahiko who does just this. Ohe Kapala, the bamboo stamps, but turns it into fashion and earrings. Again, thank you very much for joining us. Follow us on social media to find out what's coming next. But until next time, aloha, ahui ho.